I'm getting very silly vibes from my friend. Both got silly characters. They seem to be in love already. It's happening so fast. Oh, they're straight into the block colouring. Yeah, let's do that. But maybe my fox should be a fox colour.
Oh, they've gone with a colour change. Now they're going over their drawing and making it better. I'm going to do that.
Or maybe the cheese has really long legs and the fox is giving hugs to
Okay.
Yeah, let's go with that.
If you don't want your talking mouths to look awkward, then remember that human mouths are dynamic and they don't look the same from both angles. If you struggle, you can take pictures of your own mouth as reference.
I said if I didn't become a star by 35, I was just going to become a serial killer.
Well, girl, how old are you? I'm getting nervous.
Whoop-shoo! This is me trying to get ahead of the curve and get some supplies for Inktober early. I thought I would test these out to see which ones I liked and also talk about something that's been on my mind lately, and that is Inktober itself. If you have not heard yet, there's a bit of controversy about Inktober. The creator of Inktober, Jake Parker, back in 2017, ended up trademarking the logo and the name Inktober. He didn't tell anybody he was doing it, and then his lawyer sent cease and desist letters to small artists who were using the Inktober name and logo on their art books. He then apologized and released a statement saying that it was never his intention to go after these small artists. He was looking into these individuals who were trying to invade the community, aka bad actors, and make a quick buck. I would encourage you to read the whole statement. He does make some good points, but the comment section was very polarized. And a couple of weeks ago, an artist named Alfonso Dunn accused Jake Parker of plagiarizing part of his book. Pointed out several pages in which the techniques and layout were very similar between their two books, but those are still common knowledge concepts. And since I'm still on the fence, I want to know what you guys are planning to do, so let me know in the comments section and we'll have a conversation, Toucan.
Noah.
What?
Noah.
What the f do you want?
Just because we're fake dating doesn't mean I'm gonna wrestle under the covers with you.
What?
If that's what you're thinking.
You what?
Why does this strawberry I drew look like it was done in Procreate? It looks like I used to add layers, but on paper.
Stippling tutorial. Sketch out your reference image. Color in the darker areas. Use a finer pen for smaller areas and add layers. Begin to add dots into darker areas. Then add less dots in lighter areas. Rub out any pencil lines. And you're done.
I'm gonna use this tiny piece of paper as an example. So first, mark on the piece of paper like how wide you want the width of the piece to be. This also determines how big your spikes are gonna be. Next, you're gonna cut these diagonal lines that stop at the line you drew, and you're gonna do this at both sides of the paper. And it should look something like this. Now I'll just flip it over, and you're gonna cut diagonal lines that are going in the opposite way of the diagonal lines you drew first. So when you cut, it should create a spike. In the end, your paper should look something like this, and then where the line is, you're just gonna fold over the spikes, like this. And this is your final result, and then you use this piece to glue on, like I showed you in the other tutorial. That's all.
I don't know if you've spent a lot of time on Art Talk lately, but there's lots of videos busting the myth that red, yellow, and blue are the primary colors. But I want to talk about something that isn't often discussed, and that is when you're armed with the knowledge that cyan, yellow, and magenta are the truest primaries for painting, what do you actually go out and buy? And why aren't their colors simply named cyan, yellow, and magenta? You usually find these names in cheaper paints, when they're usually an impure mix of pigments like phthalo blue and white. But in reality, no true CMY colors exist in a form we can buy as paint. So when people talk about using these colors, they really mean the closest approximate colors you can get. Modern pigments like phthalo blue red shade, azo yellow medium, and quinacridone magenta come the closest. But there is choice. Some artists use permanent rose or cadmium yellows, and I've seen different paint brands suggest different pigments as their CMY primaries. One way or another, I'm gonna find out. I get you one way or another. I'm gonna Have you ever been to an art store and just felt overwhelmed by choice, so you just pick the colors that you like? I think every artist has been there, but here's a little tip. Next time, check the paint tube label to see how many pigments have been used in that color. You can tell by how many of these little pigment codes are on the label, and prioritize the colors that have only one pigment. Single pigment colors are almost always a better choice. They're just more pure and chromatic than any premixed paint color. It's kind of like getting pure basic spices for cooking rather than buying some kind of pre-mixed spice blend. Pre-mixed paint colors can be convenient, but if you're overwhelmed by choice, it's just better to go with the basics. I'm an artist currently working on commissions I can't show you yet, but I still need weekly content, so enjoy some random footage of the last painting I can share. This is my series, The Good Advice That I Often Ignore as a Professional Painter. Part 4, Always Paint Dark to Light. It's really important to learn the painting rules, but also to know that there are exceptions, and as long as you understand the reasons they're taught, you don't have to follow every one. There's lots of reasons why painting from dark to light is a good strategy. As a painter, one of the most important elements to capture is light, so it makes sense to start dark and then add the midtones, then the light. This method allows you to keep the darks thinner and more transparent, and also helps prevent muddy colors. But it's just one rule that has never suited my painting style, and it's okay to paint light to dark or middle out. Even Sargent hated this rule, starting with his midtones and adding the darks and lights at the end. There are as many painting methods as there are painters. These rules are only there to help guide you, but you can start however you want and do whatever you want if that's what works. Here are the biggest surprises about oil painting for beginners. That oil paint isn't inherently more toxic or smelly than other types of paint. A lot of this myth comes from the harmful pigments or solvents artists used in the past. It all depends on the additives you choose to paint with. That artists don't choose their paint colors just because of its color. Every pigment is different, so every color has its own transparency, texture, and other qualities. That rags or paper towels soaked in oil medium can spontaneously combust. If you're gonna try oil painting, rag safety is really important. I have a few other videos on this if you want to check them out, but it's important that they dry flat and in a fire-safe metal bin.
Even if you have never drawn a specific creature before, you can use this simple approach to study them. Let's take this trash panda for example. I start by drawing a central line which acts as a guide for symmetry. Then I sketch the biggest shapes I can see, an oval for the head and these two shapes for the paws. They aren't even precise, you don't need to worry about it at this point. Then I add middle-sized shapes like the one for the mouth, two triangles for the ears, and small circles for the eyes. Once I'm satisfied with the overall position of these shapes, I begin adding more details. I divide the paw shapes into individual fingers, pay attention to distances and proportions, and make adjustments if needed. Using a quite hard HB pencil and using it lightly allows me to correct any mistakes or messy lines as I go. Starting with the darkest values, I gradually add shading, working my way through mid-tones. For the finest details, I switch to a softer pencil. A mechanical pencil with 2B lead comes in handy for fine lines, hatching, or tiny details. I often use a blending stump. This is especially useful when capturing the fluffiness of an animal or when it's very smooth and fabulous. And for pinpoint erasing, like for white whiskers, this elastomer eraser provides the clean finish I'm looking for. So don't be intimidated if you haven't drawn some animal before. Observe the reference, embrace the simplicity of shapes, don't worry about the mistakes, and let your pencil bring them to life.
How to paint fire. Today we're going to be using these 6 colors and 2 different sized brushes. Start by mixing your 2 yellows together. Then mix your darkest yellow with your lightest red. Now you can mix the 2 together to create an orange. You can use your darkest red right out of the tube and same with the black. Now that we've got our palette set up, it's time to paint. Make sure you've also set up a photo reference. Loading up the brush with our black, we're going to start carving out the shapes of our flames. This is called working with negative space. It's when you paint the background first in order to carve out the shape of something in the foreground. It should look something like this when you're done. Now we're going to take our darkest red and outline the shape of our flame. The red should go anywhere where the black is touching the white foreground, which should leave things looking kind of like this. Now rinse and repeat this process with each color on your palette, making sure that your lightest yellow is the last that you use. Now's a good time to check yourself and make sure you're not going into autopilot and forgetting to check your reference photo. Now once you've filled all of your white spaces, the painting's gonna look something like this. Now you can totally stop here if you'd like, but I prefer to go in with a fluffy brush and start gently blending the surface of the wet paint. Between every couple seconds of blending, I'm making sure that I wipe the brush clean. This way, nothing gets too muddy while you're blending. For a more realistic blend, move your paintbrush in the same direction that the flames are moving. For our finishing touch, I take my titanium white and mix it in with the lightest yellow. I use this after my painting is completely blended to add that extra oomph in the highlight moments. And all of that should lead us to something like this. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and as always, thank you so much for watching.
This is the good advice that I often ignore as a professional painter, part 1, using pure black or pure white. It's really important to learn all the painting rules, but there's always exceptions, and I think it's perfectly okay for you to throw them out the window as long as you understand why they're taught. Most artists are told at some point never to use pure black or white. The reason why is both colors can appear flat, and such extreme contrasts aren't often seen in nature. We're taught to mix deep shadows using other colors, which is called a chromatic black, or mix white with another color like yellow to reflect a softer, more natural light. And while this is all true, a lot of professional artists still use black or white. They make black paint colors for a reason. Many classical painters used ivory black, glazing on top to add depth. And many black pigments lean blue and can mix really interesting greens and shadow colors. And I don't know many artists who can resist a pure white highlight every now and again.
This is going to be really quick, so pay attention. I have the sketch thing that I clean up, and then I blush and more blush, and then I go color pick my skin, and then I grab a color that's more red and darker, and I shade around, and then I color pick my skin again, and I go more yellow and lighter for highlights. And that's kind of what that looks like. And at this point, this is optional, but I like to use multiply layers, and then I bucket fill it with a gray color, and then I go ahead and erase parts where I have lighting for more dramatic effect. And then this is how I shade my skin, in case you wanted this, so I hope this helped. Thank you.
I could finally leave. Martha, I'm coming home, sweetie. I'm back in the fucking building again!
Разрывая землю, пальцы в кровь сотру, лесогробовую тишину прерву. Ветер жутко воет, зов мне твой несет. В этот раз я верю, точно повезет. Не пугайся, милый, суженый родной, жизнь не разлучит нас, не беги, постой, от меня не скрыться, как и от судьбы. Бог услышал с преисподней мои мольбы, чувство будто снова в груди бьется сердце. Я тебе открою смерти нежной дверцу, мы покинем мир живых, нам здесь нет места. Ты живой жених, я мертвая невеста.
Hey, I know why. Your sketches suck. Sketch from this to this by adding line weights. What? No, not like that. Like this. First, find your light source to determine where your light edges and where your shadows are. Play with harsh and soft lines to create depth. This eyebrow on the left, for example, is in a shadow, so I'm going to use thicker and darker lines. Keep in mind the direction of the strokes. Tapering them off towards the light source will really make it look dynamic. So don't forget to practice your line weights.
Everything is going to be. Then we finish our sketches. And now we start painting. Now we outline our drawings. After that I paint the background. And then I add details to it with color pencils. Finally I add the character's name. And we're done. Hope it helped.
You lied to me. You deceived me.
You tried to deceive me.
I'm tired of listening to you.
You gave me your heart, you know. You'd like me to hand it back whole again. But I won't. You live a long time yet, Catherine. An eternity without...
This is my A-level fine art sketchbook. I got an A star. So yeah, this is just my maths kind of ideas, artist study. Got a little drawing there. I took all of my own photos for my wall pieces. Yeah, I did some etching there, just experimenting. That's the best thing you can do, is just try and show that you experimented and annotate all of your work so they know why you did it and how you feel about it. Here's some lino prints that I did and I worked back into. Again, explaining all. Another artist study, and an oil painting, which was an artist copy. This is one of my favourite pages. I did that painting with acrylic on acetate. Another artist study. I did one of those little flippy things there. I don't like this page. Log. Again, just more artist studies. I really hated doing my book, so I've always felt kind of uninspired. But yeah, that's it. Hope you like it.
The first lesson I ever got from one of my favorite painting teachers was never to use black directly on the canvas, rather than just using it to mix into other paints. It can end up looking really flat and unrealistic. His suggestion was to always add some brown into your black. You can see here, even just a small amount creates a color that has a much greater sense of depth and space, especially if you were to use it in the background of a painting. But in real life, even the darkest shadows usually have some sort of color, and that color is often the opposite of that object in the light. One of my favorite things is to take two transparent colors that are on opposite sides of the color wheel, like sap green and permanent alizarin crimson, and make a really rich, deep shadow color. My oil paints take 3 or 4 days to dry on my palette. There's actually an easy hack to extend that drying time, just to put your oil paints in the freezer. Most household freezers are set above the freezing point of oil paint, so your paints actually don't freeze. Instead, you slow down the rate of oxidization, which is the process in which oil paints dry. So if you can't get back to your palette within a week, you won't waste any paint.
Jump scare warning. I don't know if you recognize me, but I used to be one of those lime lips artists on TikTok. Yeah, my old account at the time kind of blew up from these colored pencil realism portraits. But after that original account got banned, I kind of stopped making art and posting altogether. I spent a long time feeling very demotivated with art, but now it's summer and I'm gonna have more time. I decided to start up this account again to see if I'm still capable of drawing. So I'm not gonna stress myself too much over this. I wanted to keep things simple with this drawing. It's not that great. It's not as extravagant as my other stuff. And in the time I've been gone, I've been working on a style that isn't realism that I've been more excited about. I'm more of just having fun with making videos and art right now. If there's anything you guys want to see from me in terms of drawing or video style, let me know. And yeah, it's not that great, but here's the finished drawing. Comment if you know who it is.